When you hear the word prepared, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's these wild images of doomsday bunkers, right? But what if being prepared has less to do with the end of the world and everything to do with just getting through the curveballs life throws at us? Today, we're going to look at a totally different way to think about financial resilience. And believe it or not, it all started with a hurricane.
This quote from Pam Kelly really gets right to the point. I mean, right away, she's drawing a line in the sand. This isn't about doomsday scenarios, it's about life cycle events. That one little phrase completely changes the game. It takes preparedness from being some fringe hobby and turns it into a totally practical, necessary life skill. So what on earth happened in 1996 that flipped the switch for her?
Well, it all kicked off with a massive storm and a personal crisis that Pam perfectly calls her unprepared mess. Yeah, this wasn't just some small lesson. It was a huge, life-altering wake-up call.
Okay, so try to picture this. It's 1996, and Hurricane Fran just barrels through. The power goes out. And just like that, all the modern things we completely depend on, they're just gone. For Pam and her family, this was the beginning of a few really tough days that showed them just how vulnerable they actually were.
And here's where the first domino fell. No power meant the ATMs were just useless bricks, and with almost no cash in the house, her good salary, her 401k, it was all worthless. Having money in the bank means absolutely nothing if you can't get your hands on it to buy, water or batteries.
Then came the next wave of problems, the really practical stuff. A freezer that was jam-packed with food suddenly became a ticking time bomb. With no power, all of it was about to go bad. They basically had to cook everything they could on a tiny grill and just eat around the clock, knowing that once it was gone, that was it.
The sheer desperation of it all really hit home with a task that sounds so simple, getting ice. Pam had to drive 50 miles one way, wait in a huge line, and then drive all the way back. A 100-mile journey for a bag of ice. I mean, can you imagine? That's when the reality of how unprepared they were must have felt like a punch to the gut.
And this is the moment where everything changed. No blaming the government, no blaming the power company, just this raw personal realization, this is on me. I am responsible for this. That feeling of pure ownership was the spark that ignited a completely new way of thinking for her.
So, out of that unprepared mess, this new philosophy was born. It was time to move away from all the stereotypes and instead build a much more practical, real-world approach to being ready for anything.
And the difference is just crystal clear. On one side, you've got the classic doomsday prepper, who's focused on these huge world-ending events that probably won't happen. But on the other side, you have the life cycle prepper. This is all about preparing for things that are way more likely to happen to any of us. Losing a job, a big storm knocking out power for a week, or a sudden medical bill. It's about being resilient for your actual life.
And this wasn't just some idea she had and then forgot about. Nope, Pam lived and breathed this philosophy for decades. She totally rebuilt her financial life, became a successful business owner, and then, in February of 2020, she started an organization to teach this stuff to other people. And get this, just 1 month later, COVID hit. But this time, because of that life cycle approach, she was ready.
Pam's story is so powerful on its own, but it's also a perfect example of a much bigger problem in this country. Her experience wasn't just a one-off thing. It was a preview of a vulnerability that is now affecting millions and millions of people.
So you might be thinking, okay, but how widespread is this really? Is her story just an anecdote, or is this a real systemic issue?
Well, the answer is staggering. In 2023, 78% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck. Let that sink in for a second. That means almost 8 out of every 10 people are just one single emergency, one bad car repair, one unexpected trip to the doctor away from a total financial crisis. And this isn't some problem that's just sitting still. Oh no, it is getting worse, and it's getting worse fast. Look at this. The number jumped from 63% in 2022 all the way to 78% in 2023. That's a 15-point jump in 1 year. The trend is going in exactly the wrong direction.
Pam Kelly has a name for this. She calls it the pathology of financial and strategic unpreparedness. And it's more than just a phrase. It's a deep-seated issue that causes incredible stress, tons of lost opportunities, and just a lower quality of life for a huge majority of people.
Okay, so if that's the massive problem, what's the solution? Well, it starts with a really big foundational idea. We need to shift our focus as a country towards something called preparedness equity.
Now, preparedness equity isn't about making sure everyone ends up in the same place. Not at all. It's about making sure everyone has an equal shot, an equal opportunity to become resilient. It's about building a system where every single person can get the tools and the knowledge they need to build their own financial strength.
And this is where it gets really powerful. This is not a top-down fix. It doesn't start with a bunch of politicians making new laws. It starts small. It starts with us. It starts right in our own homes, with how we handle our own money.
So let's get down to brass tacks. How can one person, one household, actually start this change? Pam came up with a super simple but really effective tool she calls Bucket Boss Your Dollars, and it's based on the 5-10-10-75 framework.
The main idea here is that you never, ever spend 100% of what you make. Instead, you get intentional. You split every single dollar you earn into 4 different buckets. The biggest chunk, 75% or even less, is for your spending. Then you put at least 10% into savings, 10% into giving, and 5% or more into investing for your future.
And here's what that looks like. Pretty simple, right? The goal is to create margin by living on less than you make. And this creates space not just for saving, but for investing in your future and, this is key, supporting your community. That giving bucket is so important because it builds up the strength of the community around you, which is just as vital as your own savings when a crisis hits. It builds a support network.
And this simple little change to your household budget has these huge ripple effects. When individuals are financially stable, the entire country gets stronger. You create a more prepared, more resilient population. That in turn builds a more productive and innovative economy. And all of this helps create a more socially just society, where people are better able to handle whatever life throws at them. It really, truly does start with you.
This quote just nails the whole mindset, doesn't it? It's all about balance. It's about living your life to the fullest today, but also having the wisdom to take practical steps to get ready for tomorrow. It's this perfect mix of hope and action.
So we're going to leave you with this question to chew on. After hearing Pam's story, after seeing the numbers, just take a second and ask yourself, how prepared is my household for one of those life cycle events? Is there maybe one bucket, saving, giving, or investing, that you could start putting a little something into today? Because as we learned, that first step is just deciding you're ready for a change.